walk through the process of doing the conversion from a decimal format to a binary format and going back the other way from binary to decimal later in the course. So let's take another deep dive look at this as well. So what I wanted to do on the screen is I broke it out and I showed you the different octets. So we have the address up here, 192.168.1.131. What we've done down here is I've broken out the different octets from the first octet all the way to the fourth octet. And what I've done is shown the address in the decimal number, the binary number, and how many bits there are for each octet. So I just wanted to show it in this format as well. And you're going to become very familiar with these different formats as we progress in the multiple lectures on IPv4 addressing. All right, so now let's talk about that network portion and that host portion I was talking about. So this is a very simple example that I like to use. So we have the network address portion and we have the host address portion of an IPv4 address. So a very simple way to look at this is to think about a street address. So for example, let's say that we have a street address of 7682 Wilshire Drive. Well, with this address here, it's broken up into two different portions, right? We can think of the street as the network, and we can think of the houses on the street that each have their own number. We can think of that as the host. And so if we think about an IP address from that perspective, we understand that there is a network portion and a host portion. So the network portion, and let me get rid of this highlighting, the network portion here shown in orange, the Wilshire Drive, that identifies the network that we're on, or for example, the street that we're on. But for each individual house, if we think of each individual house on that street as a computer with an IP address, it's the number that identifies that uniquely identifies that house or that computer on that network. So when we look at an IPv4 address, we need to understand that when we see, for example, 192.168.0.106, when we're looking at that combined with the subnet mask, and I'll show you how all that works later in future videos, we can determine what portion of that address is the network portion, and we can determine what portion is the host portion, where we can give out those addresses to the different devices on our network. And so I wanted to use this as a basic example to help you to understand that when you see an IPv4 address, there's a network portion and a host portion, and that equals an IP address. And it's going to be in this format. Even though I used the example of a street, it's going to be in this format where we have the network portion first and the host portion second. But utilizing this example of an address for a street is really a very simplistic way and an easy way to help you to understand how this works. Okay, let's take a look at one more slide and let's talk about the different types of addresses that you're going to see assigned to a system. So for a device on a network, you're typically going to see an IP address, you're going to see a subnet mask, and if we need internet access, you're going to see a default gateway. So again, the IP address, we've already talked about this. This is the unique logical address that's assigned to each device on the network. But you cannot have an IP address without a subnet mask, because we use the subnet mask to determine what subnet, and a subnet is just another way of saying a network, to determine what network the actual computer or device is on. So we always have to have an IP address plus a subnet mask when we're talking about IPv4 addresses. Now, the optional part is the default gateway. So the default gateway is the router's IP address that allows a device to communicate outside of its local subnet. And again, in other words, a subnet is a network. So if we determine that the devices on our network need to communicate out to another network or on the internet, we need to provide it a default gateway. Now, this is optional